So our next step is let's take a really simple plan drawing. And so what that's going to require is for us to actually cut into the model. And so in order to do that, what we're going to need to do is we're going to take our plan cut from the top view, right? It makes a lot of sense. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a clipping plane, and we're going to apply that clipping plane to the model. And what it's going to do is it's going to cut our model for us, and then we'll be able to make 2D from that. And so in top view, the way the clipping plane works is whatever view that you put the clipping plane in, let's say if I put it in top view, you're only going to see that clipping plane in that view. In perspective view, right view, front view, you'll be able to see the clipping plane object, but you won't actually see it cutting your object. It's only going to cut the object in the view that you put it in. So the command for it is, and let me actually create a layer for it. So I'm just going to create a layer. It's not going to be in any category. It's going to be just outside because it's not a curve and it's not a surface. And I'm just going to call it in big capital letters clipping plane. And I'm going to change it to red because we don't have anything that's red so far. I'm going to make that the selected layer. And the command for it is its name, clipping plane. So start to type the name clipping plane and hit enter. And so the command is going to ask you first corner of rectangle. And it also gives you options to choose 3 points to if you want to make your clipping plane vertical, and also if you want to center it. So what we're going to do is just select our first corner of the rectangle. So I'm going to select just somewhere out here. And now it's asking for the other corner. So I'm just going to select over here. And if you notice, because my planer is on, which I'm sure everybody else is on too, it made the clipping plane at the 0, plane, right? It's all the way down here at the 0. And so if you look at top view, you'll see it's cutting it right at the lowest possible point. So you can see that the clipping plane, which is this object here, you can see it in all views, right? But the actual clipping itself is only happening in top view. You see the entire object here, right? It's not being clipped. And that's because I put the clipping plane in top view when I made it. And I'll show you the same thing in the right view and the front view when we do a section drawing next. So now that we have this in here, the best way to move this thing around is to use your gumball. So I'm going to keep top view sort of open here so I can see what's going to happen. And I'm just going to use, let's see here, front view. And I'm just going to select the blue arrow, the z-axis, and I'm just going to start to move it up slowly. And you'll notice what happens in top view. You begin to see more and more of the model as the plane goes up. And so what it's doing is it's reading the cut line as you move it. And it's changing the cut line. And if you make it all the way up at the top of the model, you'll see it's not cutting anything at all, right? But as soon as you reach both of those peaks in front view here, you'll start to see it's already starting to cut our top view. And so if I were to cut right here, it would be cutting this portion and this portion. And in top view, you can see that it's attempting to cut those portions there. So let's actually choose a lower point. And let's kind of get back down to where we were, sort of at the 0. And let's click and let's move it up 4 feet. 4 feet is sort of a typical area where you would do a plan cut for a first level. The typical dimension. Let's see how it looks for us in top view. It's got just enough information here. So I'm actually going to use this. I think 4 feet, just above, approximately 4 feet above the model looks pretty good. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and in top view, and you can turn off your clipping plane and it'll still clip, just so you know. Even once it's off, it'll still clip your object. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the object and I'm going to make 2D on top view. And I'm going to keep all the same parameters again, and I'm going to hit OK and let it do its thing. And if I zoom in on it here, you'll see that it's created that for us. So I'm going to select all the other drawings. I'm going to select all the other drawings here. I'm going to move everything down 100 feet. So if I zoom into this, you can see all the information that's on it. And I definitely probably don't want to have the hidden on for this one. It'll probably look better without it. But I'm going to keep it on anyways, and I'll deal with it later. So now that we've done that, let's turn our clipping plane back on. Let's select the clipping plane and turn on the gumball. And let's move it up another 4 feet. And you'll notice the difference there. It starts to show a little bit more of our object. And maybe that's not enough variation from our first version. So let's move it up even more. So I've moved it up 4 feet, so let's add 6 feet to that to make it an even 10. So total, I moved up 10 feet from our original cut so far. First it was 4, and then I moved it up 6, so that way it could be a total of 10. And so I think there's enough variation here to where I can make 2D again on this one. So I have officially moved it up 10 feet from its original. I'm going to select everything in top view, and I'm going to make 2D again and hit OK. And then I'm going to select everything that I've made 2D so far, and I'm going to move it all downward. Feet. Turn my clipping plane back on. So let's move 10 more feet up. And I'm going to check to see what an additional 10 feet would look like. So I'm going to move it a total of 20 feet now. And I'm going to go into top view. And I'm going to hide the clipping plane, and I'm going to make 2D of this one. And then I'm just going to keep moving everything downward 100 feet. So let's see about moving it another 20 feet. And that gets us right at the top here. So I like that. I like that it's just cutting in those two areas. And so I'm going to hide the clipping plane. And I'm going to make 2D one last time in top view to complete our cuts. So the first one we did was like a plan cut. And then the other ones are now just a series of cuts going up the model. The first one was at like 4 feet. The next one we went up 10 feet from there. And then from there we went 20 and 20. It doesn't, at this point, it doesn't matter. It technically does matter, especially, yeah, it's good to be consistent with what you do. So if we did 20, maybe we should have just done 20 the whole time. But for now, we're fine. It's not the end of the world that we did 10 and then we did 20, 20. Okay, so if we look through all four, 1, 2, 3, 4 of these cuts, you'll see that the model progressively, you start to see more and more of the model and the many shapes that it goes through and the process that it goes through. And then all the way at the bottom down here, we have the complete holistic version of it. So this could be a really useful diagram for ourselves, having a series of plan cuts. And we could actually relate these plan cuts, each one of these drawings here, to our elevations, right? Because if we took a plane down at the bottom here and we moved it, or let's say we copied it 4 feet, and then from there we went and copied that one 10 feet, right? And then from there we copied that one and we went 20 feet. And then from there we went another 20 feet. Each one of these lines represents where one of these cuts happened. And so if we wanted to, we could then now move all of these plan cuts over to the side here and start to run them along the side, and you could start to see the relationship between where the cut is happening in the elevation drawing and how the cut looks in plan. So that is just something that we could focus on maybe a little bit later, and I just want to bring up why I had to do so many plan cuts. So I'm going to delete those lines for now. That was just a little thing. And so now we've completed our clipping plane in our top view.